Fold 5 does more than a normal phone, so it deserves more than a normal review. Today, we reflect on 1 year of using the Z Fold 5 as we prepare for the next generation. Let's go. With Galaxy Unpacked mere days away, now is the perfect time to look back on what it's been like to live with a Z Fold 5 for the last 12 months. I asked in my communities tab what you were most looking forward to hearing about with a 1 year review of the Z Fold 5. Surprisingly, it was about the durability, perhaps unsurprisingly, but we're going to cover everything that I mentioned because I think this phone deserves that type of coverage, because you can't review it like a normal phone because it isn't one. So I'm going to break this down into the design and the durability of design, the wear and tear of unfolding and folding it for 12 months. Then I'm going to look at the cameras, but not output, because I don't think that the output is what this phone is about. It's more about how you use it. And I've covered output enough, I think, in last year's videos. Then I want to look at the utility, what actually sets this phone apart from other phones, the software, and then how the software takes advantage of the hardware. Let's start with the design, and more importantly, the durability of design. One thing that you kind of realize when you use a phone for 12 months is you get to know the feel and the comfort in your hand. One thing I do with my phones is I'm quite careful. I will place it on soft surfaces where I can. I will put it down in an area where I know it's not going to be dropped. Definitely don't let the kids touch it. So I'm not probably a normal user, but at the same time, I haven't babied this thing. With unfolding it, I don't be careful with it. I definitely unfold it vigorously and close it vigorously. What I do notice with that though, is that the hinge, while still sturdy, it still can open up at its multiple levels. The thing I've noticed is that when you unfold it, it hasn't stayed flat. And you can see that here. The reason why I think it's done that is probably because of what's gotten into the hinge. The hinge itself isn't completely closed, so there is still room for things to sort of get in between the gaps, although they're very small, and kind of impact how the hinge can actually stay open when it's fully flat. I don't really notice it in day-to-day. When I'm looking at it straight on, you don't see it. You really have to angle the phone a certain way to notice it. And that is why I don't think it's a deal breaker for a foldable, but it's just something that you need to be aware of. I just put it down to the fact that I, again, haven't babied it. It goes in my pocket where there could be lint. I take it to the beach and there's sand, and I have had sand in here, and you definitely feel the crunch when you open it after being at the beach. But it hasn't deterred or detracted away from the screen. The screen still functions perfectly, as does the hinge, like I showed you. Internal display shows absolutely no sign of wear and tear. I'm very happy with how it's held up over the 12 months. There's no lumps, there's no bubbles, and I'm fully aware that that can happen, especially with the screen protector, but it is not something that I've encountered, and I'm very grateful for that. Again, it's just about looking after your $2,500 Australian investment. The thing with a phone like this though, it's not just all about the inner display, you also have the front display. This is going to be the airport stuff, so just slice that in. Editor? I am the editor.
The convenience of this cover display is so good when traveling. The fact that I can sort of have my coffee in one hand and my phone in the other without having to strain or sort of put my coffee down means I can enjoy sort of being out and about. A lot of people complain that it's not wide enough. I disagree. I think for what this is, it's the perfect width for the convenience of the cover display and the fact it's got that large inner display for other stuff, which we'll talk about later. That inner display too is so convenient when you unfold it because you get all the extra room. But again, more in that when we talk about the utility of this thing.
The utility of this design is not factored in enough when people review this thing. They focus very specifically on it being a phone, and they review it with the same metrics that they review other phones, like the S24 Ultra that's over there, or the S23 Ultra that's recording this right now. They fail to take into account the utility of design and what those two screens are meant to be used for in tandem. They're a harmonious link where you can use one for certain things and unfold to the bigger one when you need it. And that's what makes it for me. The fact that if you know how to use this properly, and I have some experience now, this is my 5th fold that I've owned, you know what they're for. You can see Samsung's vision. And you definitely see Samsung's vision when you go from Fold 1 to Fold 5, because they have made this thing thinner and lighter. But that's probably still the only pain point that I have, is that compared to a normal smartphone, this is still quite heavy. Even if it's the 250 odd grams that it is, you still can feel that weight, especially when you go back to a normal smartphone. You can feel that weight difference, especially if you hold it for long periods of time. You also have the thickness to contend with, which again, does add that little bit of extra strain on your wrists when you hold it. But Samsung are heading in that right direction, and it's something that I'm willing to overlook to get the function that this thing has. Now onto the cameras. There's a lot of takes that I read on social media about the Fold 5 and its cameras. A lot of people say that for the price you're paying for this, you should get the Ultra camera system on the back. And whilst I don't disagree, there is an extent where I do start disagreeing. These cameras aren't all about the output. They're not all about the specific lenses and the hardware that's on the back. It's about the utility that the form factor can allow you to create stuff using the cameras that are on here already. No traditional smartphone can do what this thing can do. For example, no other smartphone is capable of capturing selfies at this level, convenience, and quality. This is 4K 30 portrait video mode on the Z Fold 5 right now. And I can use the cover screen to frame myself up and of course, bring in other people into the frame and sort of position them adequately as I want. Hi Sam.
Yo, what's up, bro?
Yeah.
You know you're still wearing the Steve Jobs glasses?
This will make sense in a while. Just go and subscribe to Samuel's channel because we're just on his set shooting a video
Dude,
right now.
This is actually useful.
Yeah, right?
This is actually better than the flip, right?
It's a cheat code for YouTubers. One, the camera quality is better than the flip. But two, it's a full framing that you can actually do.
I'll send you this footage. This is sick, bro.
Yeah, this is exactly what you kind of want and need for YouTubers. But not only this, I can put the phone into flex mode and then capture B-roll a lot more conveniently and a lot easier without the need to carry tripods around with me because I can just set this up on a table on a flat surface and away I go.
Okay, let's just try this one.
Okay.
In Palermo, they had this playground and there was a football pitch. My son is obsessed. And what I really appreciated about the form factor of the Fold 5 in this moment is that he could play football on the pitch. I could stand back and enjoy watching him, and I could set the phone up down on the ground, get a unique perspective, and just let it record without it looking like I'm shoving a camera in his face or distracted myself from having a phone in my face. Fold 5 captured it all, and I could just let it go as long as I needed it to. The thing is that whilst I talk about the utility and I say the output's not important, the output is still good. I've said it in my comparisons last year is that Samsung tuned this a bit differently. They try and get you a little bit more contrast, more punchy, saturated colors to give you a more aesthetically pleasing look about it, which I think is a good thing. It's trying to differentiate and still give you something unique for the money that you have paid. It has stepped in more than adequately enough in my family holidays that we've gone on when I've potentially not brought my S20 or S23 or S24 Ultra, or when this has been my main phone. I've been able to capture plenty of good shots and moments from this. That's not to say that selfishly I don't want the cameras from the S24 Ultra. Of course I do. But I think for the most general user who is looking to get a Fold, the camera's hardware is not the point. It is about the utility that the software and the hardware combined actually can give you. And that's my next point. The software and the utility of this thing truly makes this different from anything you're ever going to use. The Fold 5 software separates it not only from other phones, but from other foldables. Samsung are 5 generations in. They know the pain points of foldable customers, and they know how people are trying to use these things. So they are making the software the best they can be, and I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with the next version of oneui for foldables. Speaking about this one, the software takes advantage of the form factor better than any other phone that I've seen. Samsung so far have thought about near on everything: entertainment, productivity, and even just general phone usage. They have catered for it with this form factor and the software that comes with it.
Above all else, this form factor is incredibly useful for entertainment. The ability to fold it in half like that, then prop it down on a table in front of me means that I just have so much convenience when I want to consume content. Whether that be here in my hotel room, whether that be on flights like this morning, propping it up on the tray on my flight down here to Sydney, or whether I'm cooking in the kitchen and I just want to watch something while I'm chopping up shallots, for example, having this form factor is so convenient to consume this media. It never gets old. And whenever I step away from a fold and come back to it, I get reminded of the convenience of this form factor.
The other aspect too is the multitasking on the inner display is so well thought out. Samsung have really got software in here that allows you to take advantage of the room that you get by this aspect ratio and this tablet display on the middle. Being able to browse the internet whilst taking notes, so convenient. A lot of this has been enabled by Samsung fine-tuning the way you launch multitasking. The taskbar that they introduced a couple of years ago has really made it much easier to go into that multitasking situation and put it in the forefront of your mind because it's there at the bottom in your face. The thing is, as I use it more, I never seem to really run out of use cases for it. Because normally with a normal phone, whilst you can multitask, at least on Samsung anyway, you always get that feeling you're a little bit cramped. You have to make a bit of a sacrifice to make the multitasking work. Not here. Whether you want to be on messaging apps while consuming media. Well, the other utility part is using the cover screen with one hand to start searching for something and then opening up to the inner display and it's seamlessly transitioning into it. Great for YouTube and media consumption. It's the best. I think the thing to be said about the Fold 5 is that it's really all about the way it can enable you to use it as opposed to the limitations that it has compared to a normal phone. Realistically, those limitations aren't there. You can still do everything a normal phone can do on here, but a normal phone can't do what this can. And that's what makes this different. That's what makes this unique. And it's truly, for me, the future of the industry. If people want to get more done on their phone, if people want to be out and about more without needing to take heavy devices around, this is the way forward. Samsung still has work to do. They still need to bring down the weight and bring it down into a line of a normal smartphone, which a lot of other manufacturers are achieving, but they've still cut corners and made sacrifices to achieve that. Samsung is playing the long game. They want this to be globally available, not just available in some markets. They want the full package everywhere. And that's what I think is the best thing about Samsung's foldables and the direction they're heading in. Even if the hardware is not at the level of others, at least you can get it, and you can get it everywhere. Looking forward to seeing where they're going. If you've got a foldable right now, let me know how you use it in the comments. I'm very curious to hear how other people use their foldables. I haven't even mentioned Samsung's ecosystem as part of this review, which is crazy because I normally always do. But I think this phone can stand alone. I think it can be reviewed outside of an ecosystem and still hold up really, really, really well. Make sure you hit subscribe. We've got a big week coming up here on the channel. Unpacked is this week. If you want to reserve potentially the next foldable, use the link in the description now to get yourself in the queue, ready to go, and we'll see you in the next one.